Olive Zanders didn't expect to be accused of corporate sabotage before her morning coffee. "I'm sorry, what?" She blinked up at the man towering over her table at the corner cafe, her half-eaten blueberry muffin forgotten. "You're Olive Zanders, right?" His voice was clipped, commanding, too polished for this sleepy part of Brooklyn. He wore a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her entire rent for the year, and he looked like he belonged on a Forbes cover, not in front of a chipped cafe table. "The nonprofit that just pulled our real estate deal out from under us?" She stared, stunned. "You mean the abandoned recreation center on Fulton Street?" That abandoned recreation center was going to be a boutique hotel, he said coldly. "Until you and your charming little grant pitch convinced the city to back out." Olive pushed her chair back slowly, standing to her full height. Not that it helped much. He had at least a foot on her. "It's a community center for at-risk teens. We've been working on that proposal for a year. We didn't even know someone else was bidding." He narrowed his eyes. "Sure you didn't." She crossed her arms. "Who even are you?" "Xander Lowell. Lowell Enterprises." Of course. The name hit her like a slap. He was the millionaire real estate investor who'd been buying up half the borough and turning it into luxury everything. She'd seen his name on the community board's paperwork, but she never imagined he'd come storming up to her like this. "You came all the way down here just to yell at me?" she asked, incredulous. "No. I came to offer you a deal." She blinked. "A deal?" He sat down across from her uninvited and folded his hands. "I want that property. You want your nonprofit to survive. So here's my proposal. Lowell Enterprises funds your entire community initiative 10 times what you applied for in exchange for a long-term lease on the building's rooftop. Event space. Exclusive rights." Olive stared at him. "You want to turn our youth center into a party venue?" He gave a quick nod. "Only the rooftop. You'd have full control of the rest. Think of how many more kids you could help with real funding, real resources." "It's a business deal, Miss Zanders. You're not going to get an offer like this again." Her stomach twisted. It was tempting, too tempting. Her team had been scraping by on donations and city scraps. And here was a millionaire offering to change everything. But looking at him so calm, so calculated, something about it made her hesitate. "I'll think about it," she said, grabbing her bag. He stood too, reaching into his inner jacket pocket. "My card. Call me by Friday. I'd rather not pursue legal channels, but I will if I have to." She took the card reluctantly, tucking it into her pocket without looking at it. "You're really used to getting your way, huh?" He gave a single cool nod. "Always." By Thursday, Olive still hadn't called him. She'd been pacing her apartment for hours, rereading the grant terms, her budget spreadsheets, and all the community letters of support. They needed help. But partnering with someone like Xander Lowell felt like a deal with the devil. So, when the knock came on Friday morning, she wasn't expecting to find him standing at her door. "You didn't call," he said simply. "I said I'd think about it. And I'm still thinking." He studied her for a beat, then did something unexpected. He softened. "Look, I get it. You don't trust me. But this isn't personal for me. It's business. I make deals. I see opportunities." "And you think I'm an opportunity?" she asked, folding her arms. "I think what you're doing matters. And I think I can help. But I'm not giving money away just for charity. I want something in return." Her lips pressed into a line. "Of course you do." He stepped closer. "Let me show you what I mean. One dinner. Tonight. No pressure. Just hear me out. If you still hate me afterward, fine. I'll walk away." She was silent for a moment. Then, against her better judgment, she nodded. "Fine. Dinner." One. She expected a fancy steakhouse. Instead, he took her to a private chef's kitchen in Tribeca, where only 6 people dined at a time. He knew the chef by name. The wine was poured by a sommelier. Olive had never seen anything like it. You live like this all the time? She asked, sipping the most expensive Pinot Noir she'd ever tasted. Xander leaned back in his chair. I like quality. I work hard. I reward myself. Must be nice. He watched her for a moment. You really care about those kids, don't you? Of course I do, she said instantly. They don't have anyone else fighting for them.
His tone changed.
No family? She shook her head. Some do, but most of them. They've been through stuff you can't imagine. That's why I started the program. They need hope and structure. And someone who actually shows up. Something in his face shifted. He didn't say anything for a long time. Finally, he murmured, I didn't have that either. Growing up. Olive blinked. You? My mother died when I was 8. My father ran a shipping company and thought parenting was someone else's job. I started working at 14. Built my first company at 23. Kept telling myself I'd feel something when I made it. And did you? I felt rich, he said flatly. Not much else. She looked at him differently then. Not just a cold businessman. Something more complicated. I'm not trying to use you, Olive, he added. I'm trying to make a deal that helps us both. But I don't do emotions. I don't do chaos. I keep my life clean, controlled. She smiled gently. You ever think maybe that's the problem? He stared at her for a second, then let out a low laugh. You're dangerous. And you're controlling. I warned you it was just business. She met his eyes. Maybe it doesn't have to be. By the end of the night, she'd agreed to the deal, but only on her terms. The rooftop would host non-profit events first.
No alcohol sponsorships.
And he had to visit the center at least once a month. I don't do hand-holding, he warned as they stood outside, the city lights glowing behind them. You don't have to, she said. Just show up. He looked at her for a long time. You're not like anyone I've ever met. She smiled. Good. He surprised her then he leaned in, but not for a kiss. Instead, he brushed his hand against hers, just once. A silent promise. It felt more intimate than anything. And Olive knew even then this was no longer just business. Xander didn't do messes. But somehow, Olive Zanders had walked straight into his life and left everything in disarray. He hadn't planned on returning to the youth center so soon, but less than a week after their dinner, he found himself standing in front of the brick building on Fulton Street, a clipboard in his hand and a frown carved deep into his brow. A soft thud echoed from inside, a basketball hitting a wall. Laughter followed. High-pitched. Unfiltered. He stepped in. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. A boy no older than 12 tore past him with a foam sword, chasing another who was howling with laughter. A teenager leaned against the wall, braiding a younger girl's hair. The air smelled faintly of peanut butter and gym mats. Xander? Olive's voice cut through the noise. She was coming down the narrow hallway, her hair pulled back, a pencil tucked behind one ear. Didn't expect you. I was in the area, he said, adjusting his jacket. Thought I'd see what you've done with the place. She raised an eyebrow. We haven't even cleared the mold out of the third storage room. This isn't exactly a showpiece yet. I'm not here for a showpiece. He wasn't sure why he'd come. Maybe it was the way her eyes lit up when she talked about the kids, or the way her voice had cracked just slightly when she'd said they needed someone who showed up. It had stayed with him in a way that irritated him. She handed him a folder, without ceremony. This is the revised plan for the rooftop. I added soundproofing estimates and some new accessibility options. Take a look when you get time. He flipped it open. You did this yourself? Most of it. I don't sleep much. He looked up. Why not? She shrugged. You ever try to balance 6 programs on a shoestring budget while fielding calls from social workers and council members at midnight? No, he said plainly. She smiled faintly. Didn't think so. A girl with tangled curls ran up to Olive, waving a piece of paper.
Miss,
I finished the poem. Can I read it to you? In 5, sweetheart, Olive said gently, brushing the girl's shoulder. I'm talking with someone. The girl looked up at Xander, eyes wide. Is he your boyfriend? Olive coughed.
no, honey.
Then why's he looking at you like that? Xander's jaw tightened. He handed the folder back and turned toward the door. Let me know if any vendors give you trouble. Xander, Olive called after him. You don't have to run every time someone brings up feelings. I don't run, he said without turning back. I cut losses. Outside, the air was sharper. He took a steadying breath, heading toward his car. He didn't like the way her words lingered. He didn't like the way anything about her lingered. That night, he sat at his office in the glass tower that overlooked the river, staring at a contract he had no interest in signing. His assistant buzzed in. There's a Mr. Carver on line 3. He says it's urgent. Something about the Fulton property. Xander picked up the phone. What's the issue? There's a city council meeting next week, Carver said. Apparently, some local watchdog group is trying to block the lease agreement. They're saying it's an abuse of public space. Xander's patience thinned. It's a rooftop. They're claiming it sets a precedent. They're coming after both the nonprofit and you. He ground his teeth. Handle it. We can't. Not without someone speaking at the hearing. Xander leaned back. You want me to make a public statement about a youth center I visited once? Carver hesitated. The optics matter. Xander ended the call without replying. He stared out at the city, his city, and for the first time in years, he felt something uncomfortably close to doubt. The hearing was packed. Community members filled the chamber seats, their voices buzzing with frustration and emotion. Olive was already there, in a navy blouse and slacks, no makeup, no pretense. She was flipping through a binder, her jaw set. You're here, she said as he approached. I don't like being misrepresented. You're not the only one under fire. He met her eyes. Then let's get this over with. When her name was called, Olive stood tall and walked to the podium. Her voice was steady, firm. This center is not a loophole, not a convenience, and not a front for corporate gain, she said. It's a lifeline. And yes, we made an agreement with Mr. Lowell. But not because we were desperate. Because we saw an opportunity to build something better for everyone. Several heads nodded. A few didn't. She stepped down. He was called next. Xander Lowell had never spoken at a community meeting in his life. But as he walked to the microphone, he remembered the girl with the poem, the boy with the sword, and Olive, standing in the middle of it all like she was holding the whole place together with her bare hands. I don't do charity, he said plainly. And I didn't enter this agreement out of goodwill. I did it because I saw value. In the space. In the people running it. In the impact it could have. Maybe that's not sentimental enough for some of you. But it's the truth. There was a pause. Then, slowly, the room began to murmur. Outside, after the meeting adjourned, Olive caught up to him near the steps. You didn't have to say all that. I meant every word. She looked up at him, eyes searching. You're not who I thought you were. I'm not sure what that means. It means, she said quietly, I keep waiting for you to prove me wrong. But you haven't yet. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because something in her voice made his chest tighten in a way he didn't recognize. She stepped back. We might win this lease. But if we do, I want you to know what you're really part of. Come next Saturday. We're hosting a community night. Real people. Real stories.
No sweets.
He hesitated. Unless, she added, you're too busy keeping your life clean. He almost said no. Almost reminded her that he didn't do messy. But instead, Xander Lowell nodded. I'll be there. The sound of clapping filled the gymnasium, echoing against the newly painted walls as a teenage girl finished a spoken-word piece about her brother's time in juvenile detention. Xander stood near the back, hands casually in his pockets, watching as Olive nodded to the girl with quiet encouragement. Folding chairs lined the perimeter of the room, filled with neighbors, students, and a few teachers. Tables along the side served chili, cupcakes, and lemonade in plastic pitchers. He hadn't expected this many people. Or this much honesty. "You made it," Olive said, appearing at his side. Her blouse was wrinkled, her hair in a loose braid over one shoulder. "I wasn't sure you would. You invited me. You looked like you regretted saying yes." "I changed my mind." She tilted her head. "That's new." He said nothing. A boy with headphones and a sketchbook passed between them, followed by an elderly woman balancing 2 plates of food. Olive followed Xander's gaze. "You should know, the mural behind the stage? Drew designed it. He's 15. Doesn't speak much, but his art, I saw it," he interrupted. "It's good." Aggressive color pairings, but intentional. Her brows lifted. "You know art." "I invest in galleries," he replied. "Doesn't mean I don't understand the difference between effort and talent." She looked at him for a beat. "You're difficult to figure out. I prefer it that way." "Too bad I'm starting to get the hang of you," she said, her tone light. He didn't answer, but his attention shifted as a booming voice called out from across the room. "Xander Lowell, in the flesh. I thought you were just a name on a check." A broad-shouldered man in a leather jacket approached, grinning.
I'm Marcus.
"I run the boxing program here. Heard you're the reason we're getting a new ring." "I'm the reason Olive got the funding. What she does with it is up to her." Marcus laughed. "Well, she said you'd play it humble."
Come meet the kids, man.
"They think you're Bruce Wayne." Xander followed him reluctantly to the far end of the gym, where several boys were crowded around a worn-out punching bag. One of them, tall and wiry, offered his hand. "You really a millionaire?" the teen asked. Xander shook his hand. "Yes." "Do you own a jet?" "I lease one." The boy turned to another. "Told you." Across the room, Olive watched him field questions with an unreadable expression. It wasn't the same Xander she'd met at the cafe. He asked one of the boys about his footwork, offered a quick correction, and didn't flinch when he was challenged to a sparring match. After the event wound down, Olive found him alone near the exit, adjusting the cuff of a tailored charcoal jacket. "Didn't peg you for someone who'd let a 17-year-old punch him." "I've taken worse hits in boardrooms." She laughed, and for a moment, he let himself enjoy the sound. "Let me guess," she said. "You're going to disappear for a few weeks now. Pretend this didn't get to you." "That's not why I came." "Why did you?" He hesitated, then answered honestly. "I wanted to see if the impact matched the pitch." And he looked around at the mural, the folding chairs, the empty lemonade pitchers, and the fading buzz of community. "It does." She nodded slowly. "Then I guess I'll stop treating you like a threat." "I was never a threat to you. You were a threat to the way I do things. There's a difference." He looked at her. "You always speak like you're trying to prove something." "I am. Every day. To the donors, the kids, the council. Sometimes to myself." He shifted closer. "You don't have to prove anything to me." Her breath caught slightly, but she didn't step back. "That's the first time you've said something I didn't expect. I'm not predictable."
No.
"You're just used to people wanting something from you. I'm not one of them." "I know." He paused. "That's why I keep showing up." The space between them narrowed, the hum of the city bleeding in through the open gym doors. Olive's voice softened. "You're not the man I thought I'd be working with." He reached up, gently brushing a fleck of paint from her cheek. "Neither are you." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then frowned. "Council's sending a rep to do a surprise walkthrough next week. They want to make sure the rooftop doesn't interfere with fire codes." "I'll handle it," Zanders said. Her eyes narrowed. "You'll handle the municipal fire code issue?" "I'll call someone who will. Let me take care of it." She hesitated. I don't like giving up control. Neither do I. She smiled, but it faded quickly. You ever think about why you do this? Any of it? The money, the deals, the control? His jaw tightened. Every day. And it's never a satisfying answer. I think you're searching for something. He didn't respond. She stepped back, letting the distance settle again. Thanks for coming tonight, she said. It mattered. He gave a short nod, then walked toward the street. As he reached the curb, his driver opened the door to the sleek black car waiting there. But Xander paused, turned back once, and found her still watching him. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. But he stayed for another second longer than necessary. And Olive knew. Something had shifted. Olive stood still under the string lights on the rooftop, watching the final crew secure the last of the safety railings. The wind tugged gently at her cardigan as she surveyed the transformation, a wide-open space with polished flooring, modular seating, and tucked-away wiring for stage lights. The rooftop now offered a sweeping view of the Brooklyn skyline, something beautiful, yes, but more than that, it was a symbol of what was finally possible. She turned at the sound of footsteps behind her. You're early, she said, her voice carrying over the soft hum of the city. Didn't think you'd get here until the ribbon cutting. Xander stepped forward, his tailored black coat catching the gold of the lights. You and I both know this wasn't about ribbon cutting. You say that like you're not the one who had a branded backdrop printed. I let my marketing team have their fun. But I didn't come here to give a speech. He looked around slowly, taking in the space. You made something permanent. That's rare. She crossed her arms, not out of defensiveness, but to brace herself. You helped, whether you like that being acknowledged or not. I didn't come for credit either. Then why are you here? He took another step toward her. Because every time I walked away from you, something pulled me back. And I don't let things pull me. Ever. Olive's chest rose and fell, her breath catching. This was supposed to be a deal. I thought that's all I could offer, he said, his voice low. But I was wrong. I thought love was something weak, something that made people reckless. But it turns out, it's just the first thing I've ever felt that made me want to stay. She blinked, startled by the stark honesty. I don't know how to do this the way normal people do, he continued. I don't know how to show up with flowers or say the perfect thing at the perfect time. But I know how to build things. I know how to protect what matters. And I know that if I walk away from you tonight, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. A breeze passed between them, cool against the heat rising in her cheeks. You think love is a structure, she said after a long moment. It is. But it's not made of steel and glass. It's made of showing up when it's inconvenient, of listening when it's uncomfortable, of choosing someone when everything in your life tells you it would be easier not to. Her throat tightened, but she kept her gaze steady. You already have everything. The world bends for people like you. So, what are you really offering me? I'm offering permanence, he said. Not just funding, not just appearances. I'm offering to be part of the life you've built. I want to be in a mess with you. I want to help carry it. She looked at him for a long time, her eyes searching his face for any hint of manipulation, any glint of performance. There was none. Only quiet certainty. I don't need saving, she said, her voice soft. I know. I'm not here to save you. I'm here to stand next to you. The silence stretched, comfortable now. Below them, streetlights flickered on one by one. From inside the center, music floated upward. Someone had turned on the speaker system early. You're serious, she finally said. I'm not a man who says things he doesn't mean. She stepped closer, the space between them narrowing until the scent of his cologne mixed with the cool night air. I told myself this would always be about the kids, about the mission, that I didn't have room for anything else. And now I'm realizing I don't have to choose. I can have both. But only if it's with someone who understands the weight of what I'm carrying. I do, he said. I've carried my own. She reached for his hand slowly, threading her fingers through his. His hand was warm, steady. Everything about him had once felt untouchable. Now he felt real. I don't want a flashy promise, she said. I want someone who'll still be here next month when the plumbing breaks again, or when a kid calls at 3 in the morning. I'll answer, he said simply. She looked up at him, her lips curling slightly at the corners. I believe you. Below, the first guests for the rooftop launch began to arrive. The sound of voices and laughter rose into the night. Olive and Xander stood there, hand in hand, the moment stretching as if the rest of the world had faded away. He leaned down, wrapping his arms around her as if anchoring himself. She pressed against him, her head resting against his shoulder. There was nothing left to negotiate, nothing left to prove. Later, under the glow of the city and the soft laughter of the community around them, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. She froze. I know this is fast, he said, voice steady. And I know you're going to hate the spectacle of it. But I'm not asking to sweep you away. I'm asking to stay. To build something with you that lasts longer than either of us imagined. She opened the box, revealing a ring elegant, understated, a single sapphire set in platinum. She didn't cry.
She didn't gasp.
She simply looked up at him and nodded. Yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger slowly, his hands sure. Around them, the rooftop buzzed with celebration, but the rest of the world seemed to fall away. That night, as the skyline flickered like a heartbeat and the rooftop filled with joy, Xander Lowell realized the truth that had been waiting all along. He hadn't lost control. He'd finally found where he belonged. Olive stood at the edge of the rooftop garden, her bare feet pressing into the cool wood planks beneath her. The scent of lavender drifted through the air, mixing with the distant hum of the city below. A string quartet played somewhere behind her, their melody soft and bright, threading through the evening like a secret being passed from person to person. She turned slowly, taking in the sight of the center dressed in light. Lanterns hung from the trellises, flickering like captured stars. Potted citrus trees framed the corners, their leaves rustling gently in the spring breeze. The rooftop had become more than a space, it was alive. And tonight it was overflowing. Are you hiding? Xander's voice came from behind her, low and amused. She turned to find him leaning against the railing, his black suit tailored to an inch of perfection, his tie abandoned somewhere along the way. The top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone, his hair slightly tousled, more relaxed than she'd ever seen him in public. I'm not hiding, she said. Just watching. He stepped closer, sliding his hand into hers. They're all inside talking about the new literacy program, and the tech lab, and the rooftop garden you insisted on. I didn't insist. I just fought harder than anyone else. You always do. She looked up at him, her gaze steady. Have you thought about what comes next? In what way? We've built something incredible, but I don't want it to just be a monument. I want it to breathe.
Grow.
He nodded, squeezing her hand. I've been thinking about buying the building next door. She blinked. You mean the one with the broken skylight and the pigeons nesting on the roof? That's the one. Why? I thought we could turn it into a vocational hub. Apprenticeships. Business mentoring. A place where they can learn to build something of their own. Her chest warmed. You're serious? I've already started the paperwork. You didn't run that by me. I didn't think I had to anymore. Not when we're building the same life. She let the silence stretch, comfortable in its weight. Then, quietly, I want to build more than just programs, Xander. I want a home. A messy, real, imperfect one. With you. He didn't flinch. Then that's what we'll have. Voices called from inside, laughter spilling out through the open doors. But the world outside had narrowed to just the 2 of them. He reached into his pocket not for jewelry, not for a contract, but for a folded piece of paper. "What's that?" "A deed transfer," he said. "For the center." She stared at him. "I'm making the nonprofit the majority stakeholder," he said. "It'll never be absorbed, no matter what happens in the market. It's protected now. Permanently." Her eyes stung, the emotion hitting fast and sharp. "You didn't have to do that." "I know.
But I wanted to."
"Because this isn't about leverage anymore. It's about legacy." She took the paper, folding it carefully. "I don't think I've ever loved you more than I do in this moment." He leaned down, brushing his lips against hers, slow and certain. "Then we're finally even." The night wound down, guests slipping away with hugs and promises to return. Olive and Xander stayed behind, clearing the last of the hors d'oeuvres and blowing out candles. Neither spoke much, but their silence was full of warmth. Later, in the quiet of their shared brownstone, she lay curled beside him on the couch, her head on his chest, his fingers trailing absently through her hair. "Do you think we'll ever get used to this?" she whispered. "Used to what?" "This kind of peace." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I don't need to get used to it. I just need to hold on to it." She looked up at him. "I was afraid of you, you know. In the beginning. Not because you were powerful, but because you were everything I didn't think I could have." "You have me now," he said simply. "All of me." Time passed quietly after that. The center grew. The programs expanded. The building next door was gutted and rebuilt, becoming a place where teenagers learned to weld, code, and pitch business ideas. Olive's name became synonymous with change in the borough. Xander's legacy evolved from ruthless empire builder to philanthropic force. They married in the garden courtyard of the center, beneath an archway woven with jasmine and ivy. There was no press, no headlines. Just family, friends, and a roomful of kids who clapped the loudest when they kissed. On their first anniversary, Olive found a small velvet box on her desk at the center. Inside wasn't jewelry, but a tiny silver key. "What's this?" she asked. Xander leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "It's for the cottage upstate. The one with the lake and the fireplace you always talk about but pretend you don't want." Her eyes widened. "You bought it. We'll need somewhere quiet to go once the baby comes," he said, calm as ever.
She stared, stunned.
"You knew. You've been staring at toast like it's a war crime and crying at dog food commercials." "I figured it out." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible. And you're stuck with me." As the years passed, their life stretched in every direction, full of color, chaos, love. The center became a model for other cities. Their family grew. But no matter how many rooms were added, how many programs launched, or how many lives changed, one thing remained constant. They had built it all together. And they never stopped choosing each other. Every single day.